Today is August 7th, 2025. It's Talk of Giants brought to you by SeatGeek, and we had Dan Duggan on today's show. Really enjoyed the conversation, talked about practice so far, the structure. Do we feel like it's been any different from what Brian Daboll has done so far? Talked about season expectations. What should the expectations be? What do we think their expectations are internally? I enjoyed the Malik Nabers conversation where it's kind of interesting to see how this offseason has gone and how influential and a part of the process he's been as the Giants are trying to find their next quarterback or some kind of answer at quarterback. Talked about defensive side of the ball too, Deonte Banks, cornerback, interior D-line, and all that fun stuff. So appreciate Dan Duggan for hopping on, and congratulations to you at home because we've checked one more box off of getting closer to real Giants football. Giants preseason football this weekend against the Buffalo Bills, and I'm excited for it. I'm going to have a recap stream. I think I'm going to go live. I don't exactly know when because I'm going to be in a warehouse tournament this weekend, but I will at some point on Saturday be going live to recap that game, react it with all of you, who stands out, who doesn't stand out, and things like that. So before I bring on Dan Duggan, got to talk about Cushy Dreams because the best in legal cannabis just got better, and you know our friends at Cushy Dreams for their great THC products that ship directly to you. Everyone loves their gummies. They get the job done, but they have a new drop. How about high-powered THCA flower? Smoke it, and it's just like the real thing, but this stuff is legal for you, just for you, and for everybody to enjoy and get cushy. I feel like that's maybe how you would feel. If cushy was a feeling, like, oh, how are you feeling? I'm feeling cushy. That's what Cushy Dreams would do for you. Each one comes in 3 different sizes. The Satvia strain and Indica Satvia hybrid strain. This stuff is euphoric. Each one comes in 3 different sizes, so you can smoke as much as you want. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. And since you're a fan of what we're doing, we've got a special deal for you. How about take 20% off all D9 gummies, smokable THCA flower in the entire store when you use code JOHNBOY at checkout. JOHNBOY at checkout, 20% off. Cushy Dreams. How about it? Take some Cushy Dreams and listen to Dan Duggan and I talking about the New York Giants. Here's Dan Duggan of The Athletic. All right, welcome back to the show. I want to welcome on Dan Duggan of The Athletic. Usually it's bad radio to date yourself when you're podcasting because we're recording this on a Tuesday and this is coming out on Thursday. But Dan Duggan, you just felt an earthquake. Are you okay? Walk me through that experience.
I'm okay, but yeah, I was just sitting here and I live in a 3-unit condo, so there's like a common garage we all share. And I've had the pleasure of hitting the roof of the garage one time. I had one of those like Thule packs on top of the garage, and I just didn't even factor in the added height on the car. And so I drove into it, and the people who live in the same condo were like, "What the hell was that?" They thought it was an earthquake because it like shook the house when I ripped that thing up. Blah blah. So that's stuff about my backstory. So I thought either that happened, or I'm doing laundry. I thought the dryer fell off the washing machine because it was such a loud bang and the house shook.
It was that loud?
It was loud and it shook. And I was like, I looked at my dog who was like sitting just to my left on my couch, and he's pretty chill. And the look he gave me, and I know this whole thing about like animals always know, like with tsunamis, they go down the highland. Like the way he looked at me, like, no, that was something. And then my neighbors, we started texting, like, well, did you feel that? Did you feel that? And so confirmed I wasn't crazy. All good. But yeah, no, it's because I feel like there's been so many of these all of a sudden. I've never felt one. This one I definitely felt. It was definitely an interesting experience.
This summer we've had more torrential rain, flooding, earthquakes. The world is just in a great spot, Dan Duggan. But the Giants are also in a great spot. The world's not falling apart around them. Not this year, right? It can't happen this year. What's been your takeaway from camp so far? And so along with big picture takeaways on camp, want to hear your thoughts on that, but also really want to get at how has Brian Daboll conducted this training camp compared to previous ones stemming from the last 2 years where the Giants have been basically unprepared to play football in the month of September, or has it really not been that different?
Yeah, I don't think it's been different. He talks a lot about the differences. He's like, we evaluate everything. We have all these meetings. It's constant what you're doing in the off season. He never really shares them, so it's on us as observers to pick them up. I mean, the one that jumped out in the spring was they did a lot more 7-on-7. And then they've scaled that back in camp. They do it once in a while. They did it early in camp before they were in the pads, but not too much. And he basically said that was actually Russell Wilson's suggestion. So you're listening to starting quarterback. I think last year the approach wasn't so much like at Daniel Jones' suggestion. It was more at like we need Daniel Jones to be, in a live pass rush as much as possible because, obviously he's had issues with that. He's come back from the injury, all of that. So that factored in there. So that's a tweak. I don't think that's dramatic. I think 7-on-7 periods are kind of a waste. Now, I don't know. I'm not an NFL quarterback. Maybe for Russ, he feels like it helps with the timing and the spacing. But like, again, like when you play the game, there's going to be 5 guys around your feet and 10 guys, talk about defense guys too, and kind of crash around. I think that's probably more valuable. I get it maybe in the spring. So yeah, I don't see that as a dramatic change. And there's been a few longer practices. Like, I mean, Daboll kind of had that Club Med reputation and a lot of hour-and-a-half practices. And I think it was one practice that went like 2 hours and 12 minutes. Now I'm a sicko
Yeah.
and I chart this stuff. That's the longest practice of his tenure by like 10 minutes. Like he's never even, if it's around 2 hours, it's like right at 2:01, 2:02. So to go into like the third hour, that was a change. But I mean, it's 10 minutes, it's 15 minutes here and there. So I don't think anything crazy there. They haven't been doing any live tackling. They haven't been, in pads, the maximum amount of time. So I think it's been fairly similar. Again, we're talking about pretty granular changes that I just listed. But nothing that I'm like, oh my goodness, well, what am I walking into here? Like they're doing things totally different. They flipped it on its head. I mean, and also I think I've covered, let's see, McAdoo, Shermer, Judge. So I've covered 4 different head coaches now. Practice is kind of practice. Like they all
Yeah.
structured pretty similarly. You come out, you do that little walkthrough, they do the drive down the field, the situational thing they do every day. Then you stretch, then you do Indy, then you do special teams, then it's like a team period, then it's install. Like it's all the same. There's very little tweaks. I mean, I'd be fun to cover someone who's like from a totally different tree and see if it's different because I haven't experienced that.
Well, you want to know what? I mean, you remember when we went to, I have trouble saying the city, the city of where the Lions play, Detroit. Detroit. I really have trouble saying that. I add a Y in there for no reason. But remember when we went to the Lions? And Dan, they were like live special teams periods. We're like, what the hell am I watching? So even though we've had like 5 different head coaches, however, across many years that, I've been going to camp since McAdoo. I haven't been doing, this kind of stuff, but I've been going just to camp. And I agree with you where it feels like it's relatively the same, but then the couple times that we've gotten exposure to other coaches and, even I went up to Pat's camp and it's like you got the whole Belichickian and Judge Brian Flores thing where we're doing 2 things at one time. So that stuff is different. So
I should add Judge was different. He had
he was pretty intense.
The 2 different fields going at time to maximize the reps, the actually making them run sprints, the live contact. So yeah, no, I shouldn't group him with those other 3 because I was more saying like the structure of like the order of things, but
Yeah.
Judge's practices were way more intense and way more physically grueling than the other 3.
Yeah. And you know me, I'm a fan show, whatever. I was hoping to go into this summer being like, damn, well, the last 2 week ones, and even forget week 1, it's the whole month of September. The Giants, they just have looked like a football team that is just not ready to play football. Now, they put a lot of it on the quarterback last year, where it was clear from day one, and it was even clear from Hard Knocks, that enemy number 1 of last season was going to be Daniel Jones. So my overall hope heading into this year was, you know what, maybe there's more stuff that's wrong besides just the quarterback. And if we just cut out the quarterback and then paste everything else just like it was, like that shouldn't just be the recipe for how the 2025 Giants find their success. So that even leads to what I wanted to ask you next about, like, is there anything different when you feel like it comes to accountability, effort, or like obviously there's new energy with different players like Russ coming in and a new rookie class, but do you feel like this camp is emphasizing anything new or trying to change anything from the way that they've performed the last 2 seasons?
No, I don't feel like Daboll has changed his stripes or anything or come back and been a different guy. I don't think you can, especially with, it's year 4 and these players have all been around him. You kind of have to be who you are, and he's been a player's coach. I mean, even when we go back to the not wearing padded practices, it's not like it's like, oh, I want to take it easy on the guys. I think what happens is he gets a lot of input from the players, where I think some coaches are a little more authoritarian. It's like, well, I want you to be in pads. You're going to be in pads. He might come in on Tuesday morning thinking we're going to do a full pads practice, and Greg Van Roten or Darius Slayton or whoever like checks in his office like, hey man, my position group, the legs are a little heavy, whatever it may be, can we scale back and just wear shoulder pads today? And I think he listens to them. He listens to the training staff. Now again, everything in this, we won't know what's the right way to operate until you get to the end of the season because we live and breathe this stuff like in the minutia in July and August, and then by week 4 you totally forget like what was camp like. It's a storyline until the games start.
I said it in the last stream. I was like, in October, If they get off to a horrible start again, I'm gonna bitch and complain about this. But if
Okay,
they
good.
in October, if they get off to a good start, I'm never gonna talk about it ever again.
But yeah, at least bookmark it because we don't even talk about then the next year comes like, oh, I remember last camp, but it's a thing we live in so much in the moment. Then the first game happens, the second game happens, and you're just focused on what happened on that
Yeah,
Sunday. But no, I think that's just always been his approach where he's going to lean on, I think, erring on the side of, again, being a player's coach, with the feedback they give him, where, again, I think that works for some coaches. And then I don't think Bill Belichick was probably like polling the locker room too often on like how he was going to practice. And so I think there's many ways to do it and be successful. Obviously, they haven't been successful the last 2 years. So you might think that there'd be a dramatic change. There hasn't. You mentioned accountability. I've caught you ranting about the pre-snap penalties, and it was driving me crazy because I think it speaks to a broader thing here too, where this again the players coach thing can work. It has not worked for Daboll the last couple of years. I mean, even last year when things went off the rails, it was like, oh, well, he didn't lose the locker room. It's like, well, I mean, I don't know, they get the doors blown off by like like that Tampa game after they benched Daniel Jones. You would like to see the team rally around this big change they made, and they got absolutely destroyed. They went down to Atlanta and played horrible. So like, I mean, I guess they didn't like not try, but it wasn't like they finished strong or anything
right.
like that. But so then you're talking about the pre-snap penalties. That was an issue last year. Like it was a maddening where they just couldn't get lined up half the time. Where it's like Nabers is like needs a traffic cop tell him where to line up for all of his brilliance, and then
Yep.
he's taking off big plays that he made even in some of those games where it's like illegal formation or illegal shifts. So then to come into camp, and now listen, a lot of times it's the twos and the threes. So it's like, I don't know, can you get that worked up about like Trace Ford jumping off sides and
Right.
Elijah Garcia, who seems to jump off sides like every day? No, but I do think there's a little bit, like, to use that word, accountability. I think you set a standard, and for the first couple of practices, there was no repercussions, and we all remember, the Judge from the Belichick tree, which Daboll obviously is a branch also. It'd be a lap the first time. There was no like second. It was first offense. You run a lap, whatever you think of
Yep.
that. With Daboll, there was nothing, and they just kept adding up, adding up. So finally, he resorted to pulling guys out. So like James Hudson, for instance, jumped at a false start on the first play of a rep with the first team offense. He comes out and he sits out that whole 6 reps, whatever that period was, and Marcus Bowe actually got those reps. And he's been
He
doing
looked
that
good.
the last couple of days, but that just kind of feels like it's like, all right, well, I tried to be the nice guy. You guys didn't really respond, and so now I'm gonna have to resort to this. But like, it doesn't even feel like his heart's in it. So I don't know. We'll see. It's just that's a small detail, small example. But to say like, has anything changed on those fronts? No, I don't think it
Yeah.
has.
Zoom out from camp just for a second because you know I can't help but okay, you get excited about Dexter Lawrence should be a defensive player of the year type of caliber player, right? Abdul Carter should be a defensive rookie of the year caliber player. If anything, like I'm walking away from camp saying he should win that award and may even challenge for the leader in sacks. Like he just looks like the best player on defense, let alone the best rookie on the field. Malik Nabers saying that he could get 1,500 yards is not a stretch, even though 2 wide receivers in the NFL did that last year. So you say all these things about certain expectations, high expectations you have about some players on this team, and I don't think it's unrealistic. But then you zoom out from the team and you say, well, how many games are they going to win? 6 at best. Like, what do you think the expectation should be this year? And what do you think their expectation internally is for what they can accomplish? Maybe not even just wins and losses wise, but even if it's a feeling of we feel like we can get this, we feel like we can show substantial signs of getting this in the right direction, and like, are we resetting the Shane and Daboll timeline back to early stages of a rebuild because we just drafted the rookie quarterback? So what's your take on that?
So I'll start with my take. I mean, I think it's year
Yeah.
4. Like, it's time to put up or shut up. I mean, I know you had success year 1, but like, I don't think this idea that like, to resetting the clock, like just drafting a quarterback at number 25 doesn't move me. Like, yes, I mean, it was a necessary thing. They had to try to find a quarterback of the future, but I think you still need to produce results on the field this year. Again, to the point you made earlier, where they've pinned everything on the quarterback. So they started with a clean slate. They went out, they, flirted with a lot of different options, but this is what they landed on. Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Jackson Dart. Obviously, it mostly falls on Russ. They feel like he's good enough. I mean, so now I'll go to what their expectations. I think that they think they're going to be a competitive team. Joe Shane, remember last year when they're 2-10 or whatever at the bye week, he's talking about how close they are on
Yeah.
close games. So I think they feel like Russ and the pieces they've added, it's not like he's the only addition, obviously, on defense. They really kind of beef things up. I think they feel like they're going to win some of those close games that they lost. And I think that I don't think they sit there thinking we're going to go 12-5 and be a serious contender. But I think that they're expecting in December to be hovering around 500. With a chance. The John Mara always kind of has that meaningful game in December barometer. I think that they expect to meet that. I don't think they have illusions that this everything is fixed, but I think they feel like they're on the right path, and so they get to 7-10, and maybe Dart gets a few starts late in the year. If you're a little lower than that, but he gets a few starts and play well, then you'll go into the offseason feeling good because you say, all right, we have done enough around the rest of the roster. We believe this guy is the future. So then, we'll run it back and we'll just keep augmenting the roster. You can already see the areas they're going to need to address next offseason. But I'm just, I've obviously always been kind of a harder grader. I don't like, I don't think like 7-10 is like that's the gray area. It's like, I think anything less than that, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, you go from 6 wins to 3 wins to 5 or 6 wins in year 4, and you're still going to believe that like somehow there's a formula here that's going to magically turn it around. You get to you get 8 or 9. I would think then, yeah, you are on the right track because
Yeah.
that'd be a substantial jump. It would show that if either Russell Wilson played well, so you got the right bridge guy. It would show that the rest of the roster's in pretty good shape because I don't think Russell Wilson's great. So if you win 8 or 9 games with him starting most of the games, that tells me that like, man, that second year group of Tracy and Newman and Drew Phillips and Theo Johnson all made a big leap. It would tell me that the rookie class probably contributes. And then again, if you see Dart, I mean, he's obviously the wild card in this entire equation. If he shows any sign of promise, then yes, of course you're going to bring them back because you don't want to repeat the whole Daniel Jones having all these different coaches and OCs and stuff. So it's murky right now, but I would just say like the idea that the record doesn't matter and it's like a vibes thing. And hey, if you're competitive and hey, like I'm just not there. I don't understand how you could be there as a fan or as an outside observer. But internally, we started with John Mara of the 100th season. It was like the worst season they've ever had, and he ran it back. So I don't think it's gonna take a hell of a lot to persuade him to give them another shot. Again, if there's those little signs of promise. I just think the standard should be a little higher. Again, we're talking year 4. This isn't like as much as they might want to say it's a reset or a clean slate. It's not. So I think you have to actually make some tangible progress this year.
Yeah, for sure. You brought up Russ earlier, especially, hey, he gave an input to Daboll about practice format, and how he had influence there. More than just being a competent quarterback who understands that giving his receivers opportunities downfield is a good thing, which I think that's what we've seen so far this camp. Certain times, certain days where he holds onto the ball for a long period of time, we know that he's going to take sacks, but we know that he's going to be good pushing the ball down the field. We know that. What do you feel like Russell Wilson has brought to the team in the way that they've operated this summer, or even just the way that, I guess maybe the way that the offense has kind of carried themselves on and maybe even off the field?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing this too long. I'm so jaded though. I'm not buying like, oh, the vibes are so different. We say that every summer. Like
Yeah.
we covered a lot of bad Giants teams. Very rarely at this time of year is the fan base or the national media, or the general sense like, oh man, this team stinks. Usually this is the time you find slivers of optimism. I will say the thing with Russ that is real though is that leadership factor because he has the resume. Like, so he definitely comes in here and, whether right, wrong, or different, the way he does things, you can't argue with it because he's won a ton of games. He likes to reference every time he does an interview. He won a Super Bowl in that building across the parking lot from where they practice. That's all real. And especially they have so many young players, and you hear all these guys, oh, I had a Russell jersey when I was, a kid. I can't believe I'm catching passes from Russell Wilson. That's all real. That also wears off super fast if you start at 1-3 and Nabers is not getting targets and I think it's valuable now. And I think if they have some success early, it could be super valuable because then it's like everyone's gonna really buy in, and he can lead them, to turn things around. Again, I'm just skeptical that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So I think right now, yes, I do think that there is something to that. I mean, Daboll actually gave a really good answer on Monday about kind of Russ's influence on Nabers, and I think that's real. Like, I think some of the stuff he's taken to another level, it's just opened Nabers' eyes. Like, he's talking about how when he's out in San Diego and he's talking to like Russ's basically body team, like his physical therapist, all these people he works with and Russ, whatever I say about him, he's lasted a long time, especially as a smaller quarterback, and been very durable. So Nabers learned a lot about that with managing his toe, and I think he's been spending time, with Russ's team a little bit, outside the building. That stuff he was definitely not doing last year. And he wasn't going to get that from Daniel Jones because Daniel Jones didn't have that kind of network of like, being at the top of the game and having, Russ goes like these mental coaches, does all the stuff where I just don't think Daniel Jones really had that. So I think that type of stuff, there's a tangible benefit where it's like if Malik Nabers is going to blossom, as great as he already is, 5% more than if it was, Daniel Jones here at quarterback. That's huge. And I think there is a
Yeah.
real value to Russ in that. I just kind of think this whole idea of like the team's going to rally around him. I mean, just look at what Russ has done in his last 4 years. I mean, losing record in Seattle. I mean, terrible record in Denver when, obviously that was a disaster with Hackett. The whole mess there with Peyton. They went with 6-5 in Pittsburgh, where everyone goes, 500 or better in
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh. It's Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields. Everyone wins there, so that doesn't move me. So, like, I don't think he's going to transform the franchise. I think it's crazy when I hear people like, oh, like he looks better, like he looks younger. Like, no, he doesn't. He's 36. He's got 200 career starts. He's not going to get better at this point in his career. Now, I will say he looks fine. He looks good. Like Eli Manning always looked good in camp. Like he's not going to be
Yeah.
bad out there. I don't know. I think it's weird. Like, people are surprised how Russell looked in camp. Like, did you think he was bad? Like, you thought he was going to come out here and be like one hopping passes? Like, no, he's obviously still a competent NFL quarterback, and I think he's better than Daniel Jones. I just think that the difference has been a little exaggerated because I think
Yeah.
that's the messaging coming internally, and I think externally, a lot of people want to embrace that. Like, oh my God, things are gonna be so different with Russ. Like, I don't believe that necessarily to be the case. So that's why I think a lot of, the vibes are so different. Like, I don't know, go back and replay the tape from like NFL Network in 2021 or 2023.
Oh,
I'm sure
2023 especially. Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. And 2017, like coming off the playoffs, like I'm sure we're all talking about the vibes then. Darren Waller's first off, all those different off seasons. The vibes are always great. You might
Yeah.
find a reason to attribute it to. This year it seems to be Russ. So again, like we'll see if they start out 4-1. And it's like a 2022 redux where they're pulling out great games. Then yes, I'll eat my words and say, wow, Russ is the catalyst, and they've all bought in. They start out 1-3. I don't think people are going to be like, man, Russ is just such a positive impact. It's really made such a difference. Because I just, the reality of the results, it tends to trounce these feelings we have in July and August.
Yeah. I mean, confidence, moxie, energy, vibes, whatever the phrase you want to use. The thought that I've had about like Dart recently is, man, if that's the stuff that actually determines what makes you a franchise quarterback or not, then Jackson Dart's on his way to being Dan Marino. So we'll see about that. You were talking about Nabers, and all right, before we keep talking with Dan Duggan, I got to talk to you about DraftKings, because today's episode is sponsored by DraftKings. Football fans, the season is around the corner, and for every team and every fan base, there's renewed hope, and everyone starts with a 0 in the loss column. And there's no better time to jump into the action with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, new customers, if you bet just $5, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New customers use our promo code JMFootball, bet $5 on a wager, and get $200 bonus bets instantly. That's promo code JMFootball only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. All right, back to talking with Dan Duggan. I want to ask you this, especially, you've been around the team for a minute or two. You've seen, Odell, parts of the rise, and then definitely the fall of him. Seeing Nabers have this influence and this, I don't even want to say involvement, because I don't know how involved he is, but have this overall, he's a part of the process in some way, whether he makes himself part of the process or whether the Giants actually listen to him or not on how the quarterback situation has shaped this offseason. He's clearly, based on his tweets, he's been informed on what they're kind of thinking and what they're trying to do. I don't even, maybe I'll frame it as, does that surprise you that he's taken on that role? I'll frame it this way. Does that surprise you that Malik Nabers in his first 2 years has kind of taken on that role, and he's been part of these conversations? And really, I don't know if I expected him being like, he feels like he is a legit leader of this team and of this offense.
Yeah, I'll say yes and no. Am I surprised that like he clearly was being kept in the loop on everything they were doing in the quarterback search, and then Daboll has come on and said that too, which sometimes he will keep things hush hush. And I think, well, maybe Nabers said it first, and then Daboll didn't dispute it, obviously. But you think back to like February when he's tweeting out like not very veiled references to Matthew Stafford, like the was he number 9 and like a ram like emoji, and I think even Cooper Kupp. So like, and obviously that was at a time when those talks were very real. So it felt like they were certainly keeping him, abreast of those talks. And the way Nabers described it was basically like Daboll was asking him for like his input, like, what do you think of this? And like, to me, yes, that's surprising that you're doing that for a guy for as great as he was, who's been in the league for 1 year. It doesn't surprise me, again, going back to the way Daboll operates, though. He is a very like player-friendly coach. And I think he recognizes Nabers has obviously extraordinary talent. And I think, you go back to Hard Knocks, though, there were I don't want like characters too rough of a word sometimes. Personality concerns. They were like,
Yeah.
how's he going to handle this? How's he going to handle that? And you saw glimpses of it last year where like it probably could go if things continue in a bad direction. Like some of those post-game press conferences, I'm sure that, Pat Hanlon was probably like a little sitting up, a little tight in the seat watching those because you don't know what's going to come out of his mouth next. So I think Daboll realizes that he's not a guy to rule with an iron fist because he has so much talent. He needs him. So I think he's gone the opposite, where he's really brought him in and really made him feel valued. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It's just surprising for a guy who really, I'm not saying he hasn't done much, but just hasn't been in the league long enough to do much.
Right.
To already kind of empower him that much. And I think you could see potentially that could spiral into something bad where a lot of these receivers get entitled and they're going to be making statements that are kind of outside of their, I don't want to say pay range, but sort of where they fit in the power structure. I think he's going to have I think he's gonna have a lot of freedom to probably say and do what he wants. I mean, we saw he kind of took the spring off there, and so I think there's a fine line with that. But I do think it's a calculated thing. Everything Daboll does is calculated. So I think he looked at it like, I have this guy who's immensely talented, who's going to be enormously important to basically my tenure, the success of the team, all of that. So let me figure out the best way to harness that. So I do think keeping him in the loop, you can see the Nabers very much valued and appreciated that. So I think that was a good decision, but it is definitely unusual, I would say. I don't think Odell, for all of his talent, was getting, they were asking, well, he was going on with Justina Anderson and Lil Wayne and telling you how he felt. I don't think anyone was calling out to the office say, hey, when do you think we should move on from Eli? But it felt like with Nabers, like, what do you think we should do at quarterback? Which again, maybe they were just almost patronizing him. It doesn't feel that way. It felt like he was actually an active voice and the Daboll values his input.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the other side of the ball. What do we have to do to get Deontay Banks to turn his damn head, Dan Duggan?
Well, it wasn't changing position coaches. We've learned that much because, obviously, there was Daniel Jones was kind of the offensive scapegoat and deservedly so. And then Jerome Henderson and Mike Trier, the defensive scapegoats, I'd argue probably not as deservedly so because, we've had they're talking about vibes. Oh, these new position coaches, they played in the league. I mean, Jerome Henderson also played in the league, but like, they played in the league, and they're going to get through to the other banks. And he's the same exact guy. You're there every day at camp. He looks no different. It doesn't mean he looks better or worse. He just looks no different. Like, he hasn't gotten better in any of the areas of weaknesses. He's still a very physically gifted, athletic guy. He's in great coverage a lot of times, and that's where the frustration is not the ball surface, but he doesn't look any different. And so that's why you're in the position where the position battle with Cordell Flott in the spring, I was like, is this sort of like a psychological ploy by Daboll to like, let's light a fire under this kid? No. Like we saw in camp where they were legitimately alternating days as who would be the first guy up. And then within each practice, Banks would get one series with the ones, then he'd go to the twos and and he'd flip-flop with Flott as a mouthful. And that was the case until now. Flott, this has sort of been his bugaboo. Like, he's got something, I'm pretty sure it's like a soft tissue. I haven't determined or discovered yet what it is, but now he's off to the side. He's missing some practices. So now you're getting Banks 3-4 days in a row with the ones. And, as I said, we're recording this on Tuesday. They got 2 more practices for the preseason opener. I would, unless Flott's back out there on Wednesday, you figure he's probably not going to play in the preseason opener. So it's like Banks is probably going to end up, maybe by default, emerging from this position battle as the starter, which I think was probably the most likely outcome anyways, man. I think he's a better player than Cordell Flott.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But if he's not going to do sort of the intangible stuff, which I think was part of the package, it wasn't just not turning his head. It was sort of everything else that went along last season. I think that they probably would have went with Flott and been like, listen, you might be more talented, but this guy's more reliable, or, whatever you want to call it. But it just feels like now all signs are pointing towards Banks. Because, again, he hasn't been bad in camp. He just hasn't been any better. He's just been what he's always been, which is fine. But, I think you'd hope that there would have been a little bit of a jump, or, that he would be a different player, and that hasn't been the case.
Yeah. I mean, run defense and other intangibles and stuff like that, you can't really see because, guys, let's just say Wan'Dale catches a ball over the middle of the field. He has room to run, room to operate. You can't really see Deontay Banks, all right, are you going to make that tackle to save this play from a 17-yard gain from a 45-yard gain, right? So you can't really see that. But the thing that you can see is he is going to continue to allow catches over and over again. For me, it is turn your damn head. And I see there are certain times where he's trying to, okay, if you're not going to be a guy that's going to turn your head, then play the football as it comes and as the receiver flashes his hands.
Yeah.
And I see that there's an effort where he's trying to do that, but that's still not even a great effort. It's just so damn frustrating. I think maybe the last time you were on, I was talking about like, oh, next gen data of he's right there. And like
Yeah.
coverage separation, it's the best corners in the league. Reek Woolen, Sauce Gardner, and then like Deontay Banks is top 5. And then what's this polar bear doing in Arlington, Texas? And that's what it is. But I think the eye test backs up what that stat says. It constantly always in a decent spot. Just can't make a play on the football. And I think he will. It's getting to the point where I'm like, all right, there's no way that it's going to continue to be that bad, because he knows that he has to fix it. But it turns out that there is a way that it can continue to be that bad. So,
And it might not be fixable. I mean, obviously, I'm sure, his coaches at Maryland probably like they're not teaching him separate techniques. I mean, because
right.
you watch a guy like Drew Phillips, even if he gets beat, he does turn his head really well. There was the long play there that was like the highlight of camp when he batted that long pass away to Wandale, and then Wandale I'm catching. Nabers beat him for a long completion on Monday. He turned his head. I mean, if Deontay Banks was in coverage on both of those, there's no chance he would like that long one to Wandale. It might have hit Banks in the back of
the head.
It was underthrown ball, but it definitely would not have been a situation where him turning, finding it, and batting away. But to your point, yeah, I think that's the one thing he can do is like play it through a guy's hands. I remember there was a play probably like in the first week of camp where like there was a sort of a little fade to Dulcich, and he did that. Like he didn't turn and find the ball, but Dulcich put his hands out and Banks timed it well and knocked it away. But that was also the same practice where Rush just launched up a fade to Bo Collins, and Banks just like bear hugged him as the puck was like underthrown. He's like bear hugged him and got a flag, and then argued the call. I was like, I'm not sure what we're arguing there. You're literally like hugging the guy as the ball was in the air. But that's again, yeah, I don't think he's gonna get that. That's why I kind of was like, obviously snarkily said the thing about the position coaches, like to kind of blame Deontay Banks to struggle on coaching. Like, no, I think everyone's tried to get him to do it. I just I don't think he has that skill, and I don't know at this point he can develop it, because you can do drills so you blue in the face when that 45-yard pass up in the air, instincts are going to kick in, and he obviously just doesn't have the confidence or whatever it is to trust that he can turn, find the ball, and stay in coverage. So he kind of resorts to just kind of face guarding and hoping for the best.
How in the world do they think they're going to survive when Dexter Lawrence is not on the field for them?
Yeah, that's the area that's concerning. I swear, as I was saying, we already kind of know the areas are going to need to be addressed next offseason. And
it's it's O-line and interior D-line. I feel like if they finish with 4, 5, 6, 7 wins this season, the script for next offseason, I already feel like is written, what they need to do in free agency and the draft.
Yeah, because you have your pass rushers on that second level. You have your secondary. Obviously there's some guys there. You don't know exactly how good Tyler Newb is going to be or what Deontay Banks is going to do, but you have all those guys under contract. They're all young. The skill positions, I mean, you kind of have that core in place. There probably could be some upgrades there if they don't have a great year. But yeah, like you said, the trenches, both sides of the ball. It's like I feel like this is an annual thing we talk about in this space, where it's just like it just feels like they never quite do enough, or they always just cling to hope. I just got off a Zoom call with Daboll talking about how confident they are in John Michael Schmitz. It's like, okay, like I guess. So yeah, you're actually talking D-line, and yeah, D-line. I mean, like they tried to address it. Roy Robinson Harris was like a low level, but like an A'Shawn Robinson level contract. Like I think it's 2 years, $9 million.
I'd rather have A'Shawn back.
Yeah, Darius Alexander was a third-round pick. Everyone's excited about. I'm not going to bury the guy after 2 weeks, but I'll say this: there's not like a guy who's going to be ready to come in and contribute immediately as an NFL starter. And I think that's a little disappointing because he's like a 25-year-old rookie. So it's not like, oh, they got this raw kid like Cordell Flott who's got all this time to develop and he's got to grow. Like he's a grown man already. Now, granted, he was playing at Toledo, so maybe it's just the jump up in competition. But he has not looked good really at all. But again, I'm not gonna bury a rookie 2 weeks of the camp. That would be silly. But I just don't think you can sit here and say, all right, hey, week 1 in Washington, him and Dex, that's going to be the duo inside. I don't think we've seen any signs of that. So it's probably going to be Roy Robinson Harris, Nacho, a guy I think everyone's been trying to run out of town since the cap casualty season in March. And not only is he still here,
they need him
starting in your base defense in week 1. Yeah,
yes.
I mean he's been a top 3 or really top 2 because Dex doesn't really practice a lot these days. So it's really been a lot of Roy Robinson Harris and Nacho as your top 2 interior defensive linemen. So yeah, and how could you feel good about that? I mean, because Roy Robinson Harris, he's a guy that seems like his career is going in the wrong direction rapidly. Jacksonville traded him mid-season last year. He gets to Seattle. Seattle, plays him for a couple weeks and then benches him and then cuts him. So it's like, maybe there were some signs there we shouldn't have even been even mildly excited about that signing because it feels like the arrow's pointing down there, but he's still out there. I remember you were a Jeremiah Ledbetter guy in the spring. I mean,
And I don't even know if he's going to make the team. Like I think his film and not only his film, his run, his production against the run is better. I mean, it's better than Nacho. It's better than Roy Robertson Harris and the stuff that he did at Jacksonville. But I don't even know if he's going to make the team just based on.
I'd be shocked if he makes the team.
You'd be shocked if he makes it? Okay.
I mean, they just wrote this depth chart on the fourth team. I mean, like you would think a veteran could get bumped up a little bit, even if it's. I mean, I think that's accurate, but you would think they might have pumped that up a little bit. So no, he seems like he's a guy who's just kind of come in and go, and you don't even really think twice about it. But yeah, no, that's. I mean, listen, if there's going to be a weakness on the defense, it's absolutely going to be first down run defense because you can't get to all the crazy Abdul Carter stuff with the whatever we're going to come up with a name for that package with Kayvon and Dex and Burns front. If it's first and 10, second and 3, first and 10, second and 4, you're not going to be able to unleash, all this stuff that I think everyone's so excited about. So yeah, that to me is like the number one concern right now is just the run defense has been bad year over year, different coordinators. And I just don't think the personnel has been upgraded enough. And even these really talented players you've added on the edge, like, I don't know if we look at any of them as like these unbelievable run defenders. It's like, again, this whole defense is going to be based on getting to 2nd and 8 and 3rd and 6, and then they can, just kind of go crazy. So just the matter of getting there will be the challenge.
Yeah. One more, and then I'll get to. I always love asking every reporter, what are you writing about? What are you thinking about that nobody else is. But Evan Neal at guard. I have this theory, Dan, that I don't even like O-line rotations, but I just have a feeling based on how this camp has gone, where they've rotated him in and out at both guard spots, and also kind of knowing that I think there is a world where Evan Neal could be a decent run blocker. I think dealing with quick moves off the line is going to be very bad for him as a pass blocker. But I still kind of think I can envision a world where Evan Neal rotates in and out with Greg Van Roten this year, given a certain game, given a certain opponent, given a certain situation. Evan Neal at guard, what's been your takeaway from him basically through the first 2 weeks? I feel like pre-pads there was one story, and then post-pads it's been another.
Yeah. I'll actually go back to that rotation point. It wasn't one I had thought too much about because they didn't do it at all last year, and I think Carmen Basilio even said he's not a fan of it. But now we go back. You have to tap into your institutional knowledge. That was with Daboll though, because I know Judge definitely did it, but Daboll did it too with like Bredesen and Gates, right? That was the
Bredesen, Gates. Feliciano was not part of it. Feliciano should have been the one rotated in and out. Right. But yes, it was Bredesen and Gates where you're taking two good linemen. So
we know I haven't really thought about it. That might make the most sense because like you said, that's how practice works. It's like Van Roten would be the first guy up, and then like he'll do 3 reps in a period, and Neal will do the next 3. Then Neal will get the whole next period. Then GVAR will get the whole next period. So it's like they literally are rotating. And I could see that maybe being a sort of a middle ground they settle on. Because I think coming into this camp, they were really, really hopeful that Evan Neal was going to just look awesome at guard, wrestle that job away from GVR, but make it you can't just disrespect GVR and like shoehorn a guy in who can't play. Make it a legitimate competition and then have it be like, well, listen, what can we say? This guy's a mountain of a man. Look how much he's much more comfortably looks at guard. Look how much better he looks at guard. GVR would be super valuable then as like your utility guy. You can back up both guard spots and center off the bench. I think that would like raise the ceiling, raise the floor, everything about the offensive line. And like you said, I think there was some early optimism. Even those first 2 days of pads when it was run, like I think one practice rushed through like 4 passes one practice because they're just pounding the ball. And you can see the reason for optimism or hope there where it's like, Jermaine Illuminor, was a great quote to begin with. And he was saying, like when we start moving guys on double teams, you kind of see the vision. Like, yeah, that could be pretty good. Like running behind these 2 monsters on the right side. But then, like you said, you start playing real football and you're passing. And I think a lot of that optimism has kind of waned. I mean, I will be the first to admit, I do not sit there and focus on the right guard when I'm watching practice from field level on the side. A lot of times you might have to go back and, it's great during when fans are at practice because you guys video everything and I can go back and a kind of better view. And I'll see him. And the one thing I do notice a lot of times live, but even when you go back and watch, he's just on the ground a lot. Like that's just always been his thing. The footwork, the balance, whatever it is, he's just always on the ground. And you can't play a guy like that. I mean, obviously I know they did it for a couple of years and it didn't go well. So again, I'm not going to sit there and also like pull the plug on the Neal guard experiment. I think if you want to talk about who preseason live action is going to be most important for on
Oh,
the
it's
whole
him.
team. Yeah, people are going to talk like Montreal Washington, these guys who like have a sliver of a chance to make the roster or whatever. Evan Neal, there's nobody who it's more important for because he could literally go from making this a real competition or actually starting to just being like an afterthought and like, yeah, dude, like you can't do it. Like we'll keep training you up there, but like you might get GVR gets hurt in a game, they might put like Kubas in or Stinney and whoever's there because like if he shows in the preseason that he hasn't made that transition click, then I just think that they'd have to say like, all right, this isn't going to work. But I know they very much want it to work, and I think they had some optimism because I mean there are just physical traits. Even you talk to teammates and stuff, it's like when he gets his hands on you, like
Oh, it's
it's
over.
over. It's
Yeah.
over. The problem is getting his hands on you, and I think and again like he played tackle 1 year at Alabama like 6 years ago, so it's like the idea that it's just like this easy transition back. I don't think that's the case because I was talking to some teammates and they're actually getting pretty technical, which players don't often do, saying like he has to learn to stop throwing his hands so much because maybe on the outside he felt like he needed to do that to mitigate the speed. He's like
Right.
he's so big, he needs to like because if he shoots his hands and you miss inside, it's like boom, Dexter Lawrence is swimming by you and your quarterback's 6 feet into the turf. So just stuff like that is still a work in progress. So it's probably ambitious to think he's going to be ready to come in, be a day one starter, play 100% of the snap. So maybe I could see your rotation thing being a compromise because I do think they still see some upside there. I think they're obviously, even if it's subconsciously, they're invested in their number 7
Yeah.
pick, producing something for them. And it's not like he's playing behind, Larry Allen. I mean, Greg Roden, maybe it benefit him to take a series off every third series, whatever maybe. I think that's a good thought because I hadn't really considered that, but that might make most sense. And it's also like you're not throwing too much at him. 'Cause I think honestly, if you throw him out there week one, expect him to play 100% of
Yeah.
snaps, he gives up
60,
a
70
sack
snaps. Yeah.
yeah, he gives up a sack or two. You're gonna have everyone who's behind him now is gonna be chirping, and like we've seen, he doesn't handle that well. So I think maybe let him get his toe in the water because I do think that there is a chance, like he could be. I don't want to say Mekhi Becton, but like even Eric Flowers level transition that could happen. But I don't think he looks ready to do it now. So yeah, maybe that's the way to do it. You give him a little bit here, a little bit there. You see some progress, let his confidence build up, and then maybe you have something for the second half of the year where he's a legitimate option at guard.
Yeah, that's been my theory. Rotation. I think it makes sense. Even though again, I like in my brain like there's a five that plays together, but I know that they want to put him out on the field, so I can see that happening. I lied. I'm asking you one more question, and then I'm getting to what are you looking for? I haven't talked about Jackson Dart. And we could be real. I mean, everybody talks about Jackson Dart every day, but you got to pay the bills. What have you seen from Dart? Like how I was even thinking like how has he carried himself, or even if you want to go in this direction, they're treating Jackson Dart like he's quarterback too. The unofficial depth chart comes out on Tuesday, and it says that he's QB3, but he's basically been QB2 since the start of camp and how they've treated him. Anytime they're doing split individuals where two quarterbacks are on one side, two quarterbacks are on another, it's Russ and Dart, and it's Jameis and DeVito. So what's your kind of take on how Dart started off this camp on the field? How has he kind of carried himself, confidence and moxie, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, well, so to the QB2 point, this is where I wish Daboll would give a little more because I know, listen, we in the media care about it. Sometimes fans don't like, oh yeah, stick it to the media, don't say anything. It would be interesting to kind of understand and hear his process with developing a quarterback. So obviously he, famously did with Josh Allen. I think we got to see a little bit of it with the pre-draft process last year. Obviously not so much with Dart, but with Hard Knocks, got to see him in the room with guys, and that was fascinating stuff. But he'll never really explain why he does certain things. So we're left to surmise and ask around and try and figure it out. But it'd be nice to just have it laid out, which again, that's not what he's gonna do. So it's my job to try and fill those blanks. So what I think he's doing again, I do think he's very calculated with everything he does. I think the reason why Dart has been QB2 and he's over with Russ in those periods. And again, I think everything they did was very planned of getting Jameis and then still getting Russ, and then obviously knowing they had a chance to get Dart or whoever it may have been, however the draft broke. Was Jameis is like he's got a million miles on him. Like he's seen it all. He's been the top guy. He's been a backup. He's done everything. You don't need to like cater to him the way you do with Russ. Like Russ, I mean, it's funny. I chart the reps. I think Jack and Dog got one first team rep on day one of camp, and that's it. It's literally the only one.
There hasn't.
Funny that there's
No.
it's kind of funny that there's been just one. It's just sitting there in like that column. But so it's like Russ, you're the starter. We're not messing with you. Like you're gonna get as many reps as you need. You want 7-on-7? We'll do 7-on-7. And with Jameis, it's like, not that they like just kind of like treat him as an afterthought, but it's like, all right, you've been a backup, you've been humble, but you also have a ton of NFL experience. You don't need maybe as many reps. Like they give him almost like a token rep with the twos, the way they might have done with Jackson with the ones in the spring. But so I think it's like we don't want Jackson Dart coming out in practice every day and playing behind the third team offensive line, throwing to the third team receivers. Even as excited everyone gets about the undrafted, young guys they're probably running the wrong routes more often than even Zach Pascal and Lil Jordan Humphrey, guys have been in the NFL, and Jalen Hyatt when he's with those types of guys, Amir Smith Marset, those types of guys who know what they're doing as NFL players. So I think that's the main reason Dart has gotten all those second team reps. It's just, and I think in the preseason it'll be interesting to see. I don't think you'll see Jackson Dart playing in the fourth quarter.
No.
I don't want him being protected by Stone Forsythe and Jason Williams and Brian Hudson. Like that'll be Tommy DeVito. That's where Tommy DeVito's like last gift to the Giants will be, that he'll be the guy running for his life in the fourth quarter preseason.
The whole
game.
second half. Yeah, I feel like the whole second half we're going to see DeVito. So
And so with Jameis, it's like he gets third team reps, but I don't think obviously they're evaluating everything, but he's here. They know what he's capable of. So I think it's more important that Jackson is put in a positive situation, surrounded by better players, in a better protection, probably more important than anything. But I don't think that necessarily means he'll be QB2 week 1 in Washington, because again, Jameis is in all the meetings. He's got all this experience. I don't know that him getting less reps in the summer will change his preparation level significantly. Whereas if Jackson Dart was back there, his introduction to the NFL is playing with guys who don't know what they're doing, I think they feel like that might have been kind of counterproductive. So I think that's how I'm reading that. Now, I could be totally wrong. Again, that's why I wish Daboll could just explain it all, but he's never going to do that. But I think that's what happened. I think I think Jameis Winston is QB2 on that depth chart because he's going to be QB2. And the fact that Jackson Dart's gotten all the second team reps, or 90% of the second team reps, is more about his development, not about like what's going to help the 2025 Giants. But so that's my theory there. Now, as far as how Dart looks, I mean, you touched on it earlier, like as far as like face of the franchise stuff, like he's knocked that stuff out of the park. Like he's been really good. Like seems like has a really good personality, very comfortable in his own skin, like very just kind of savvy. Like the lot of the stuff we're talking about Russ with leadership, like Dart seems to have a lot of those qualities. Seems like it comes very authentically to him too. Like I don't think he's trying. I think that's just who he is. And again, everything's gonna be compared and contrasted to Daniel Jones, and like Daniel Jones was just like a little bit more of a reserved guy. Dart is very outgoing, and like we'll see if this New York market can beat that out of him. I hope not, because it's been refreshing to have, even when Eli was here, like to have a starting quarterback with some personality will be a fun job for us and for fans though. I think it'd be cool to have like a little bit of that Baker Mayfield type moxie at quarterback that again, Eli, for as great as he was, you didn't get too much personality. And obviously with Daniel Jones, 6 years of losing with a born quarterback made it that much more painful at times to go through. So that I think all that stuff, you can see why they liked him. If it was just based on the intangibles, like get his bust ready, because he seemed to have all of those.
Yeah.
But it's obviously the play is going to determine everything. And I think he's looked like a rookie developmental quarterback. Like I don't think he has looked bad, but I don't think he's looked great. It's like there's two ends of the spectrum. He's somewhere in that broad middle ground. Like people ask me, like, how's his arm strength? Like it's fine. Like I never sit there like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he just made that throw. That is like Josh Allen, prime Josh Allen. No, but it's not so like, oh God, what was that? Like when you saw like Kyle Ouellette at rookie minicamp, you're like, you sure about that? He looks fine. Like the ball, it gets where it needs to get. It's got plenty of zip. Like the deep stuff hasn't been great in camp, but again, that might be just timing. I think some of these deep balls that don't get caught by Lil Jordan Humphrey will get caught by Malik Nabers in week 16 if he's in the lineup. So there's nothing been alarming, but also nothing that's made me like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy was a 25. Like the league slept on. Like he looks like a rookie. There's some practices, especially early, he didn't look very good at all. Like no big deal, not surprised. Just the middle stretch of camp there where he looked pretty good, looked like things were clicking. He even said like the game was slowing down, which again, that was kind of a funny quote. For to say that like 4 practices into your NFL career, like you might realize it comes back around and the speed will pick up again. But I think it looked like that. He did look more decisive. The last couple of practices have been sort of just like, whatever. It's like the dog days of camp now. I don't think he's like looked great or terrible. But yeah, so I think that he looks kind of like I was saying with Russ, like you kind of knew what Russ was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dart kind of, I mean, I didn't know much about him really, or I hadn't seen him play a lot, obviously, but it kind of looks like what I'd expect from his profile. Like he hasn't come in here and blown my socks off. He also hasn't come in here and been like, what did they see? How did they draft this guy? Like, you can definitely see a potential, but I mean, it's so early. Like he hasn't done anything to be like, oh man, they got a quarterback controversy on their hands. But he also hasn't done anything that like if they put him in there in week 13, he's gonna be a disaster. Like I think it'll be obviously once he gets in live action, it'll be like let's just see how it goes
Yeah.
because what we've seen in camp has just been like, yeah, it looks like what you'd expect.
I feel like that's a lot of the roster. Like towards the back half of camp that's been open to the public. Obviously, you have a whole other, more month of watching training camp and as the preseason develops and as we get closer to the regular season. But I always approach it like I like having 12 to 13 practices that are open to the public because once you get to practice 8 or 9, it's like okay, yeah, this is the same players going up against the same guys every single day doing the same damn thing over and over again. And, as we alluded to earlier, Daboll hasn't really done anything practice-wise to introduce new things or go more team period, go more heavy team period or anything like that. So I have found I've had to get more creative as like the second half of this camp period being open to the public is gone. Like, all right, well, I'm going to spend one day looking just at the rookies or one day just looking at Jackson Dart because it has been kind of for the roster up and down. Yeah, we know Malik Nabers is good. Yeah, we know Abdul Carter can be a stud. Yeah, we know Brian Burns and all this up and down. There's been like no huge surprises. So with that, I think this question is actually challenging. And again, it's one that I ask every year. Because the roster kind of feels mostly set, could be a little challenging. What is something that you're thinking about? What is something that you're writing? What is something that you're looking into that you feel like not a lot of other people are looking at, talking about, researching, whatever?
You even like gave me a chance to think about this question when you mentioned it like 10 minutes ago. I'll say like it's funny you mentioned how you kind of did that day you focus on Dart. I do that every year with somebody, and my colleague Charlotte Carroll did it on Abdul Carter. I'm gonna do it at Dart at some point. It's a matter of picking the right practice. I was gonna do it yesterday, and then I saw them come out in like not in full pads. I'm like, this might be a light practice. Let me not do it today. But I'll do a Dart diary at some point. I also gonna be here. I don't want to tip my hand too much because it's like NFL media. It's like leading into week one is like you got to have like a big feature like that Thursday of week one, and I have a few ideas. I need to kind of get cooking on actually doing the reporting on them, but I don't want to give those away because I know how well listened this podcast must be on the beat. So I don't want to be tipping off any competitors. But yeah, so I will kind of like lamely punt on that because I don't want to like
Okay.
give any ideas that I'm thinking about. I mean, I think we covered a lot of ground here, and anything we haven't, yeah, I want to kind of keep to myself until you like the first week of like leading into week one when you see a feature drop, you'll know that was what I was holding back from you right now.
Who's wide receiver 5 and 6? That's it.
Okay.
Amir Smith-Marsette's 5. Who's wide receiver 6?
Okay. Amir Smith is number 5 with a little bit of an asterisk to me. I came up until about this week, I thought he was a lock, and I kind of mentioned Montreal Washington in passing. I think if Montreal Washington makes the team, it's because he unseats Smith Marset as the top returner.
Okay.
Because I think what happens, and again, I always reference how long I've done this. Every year, there's a guy in camp that is like, oh my God, like this guy's like killing in camp. Like, I mean, like I think should have an award for it, like the Darius Poe Award or the Alonzo Russell. I mean, if you'd have to be pretty diehard to remember some of these names I'm throwing out. But these are guys who especially like in the spring, it's even crazier because you're basically playing like two-hand touch, but like people go crazy over how many catches, Montreal Washington's had. Like, I don't know if any of them come from Russell Wilson. I think most of them went to twos. A lot of them even just to start his little rise with the threes. Now I know he's gotten some reps to one, so that's real. That's something
Yeah.
you take note of. But like, just play this out. Malik Nabers, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt. Where's a wide receiver 5 getting offensive reps? Now, I mean, obviously there's injuries or whatever. You're being a special teamer and you're being a backup. So you're not making the team because you had like Gunnar Olszewski is a great example. He had 4 catches from Jameis on that drive yesterday.
Oh, it was insane.
Like, proved like the best catches I've ever seen. Like that doesn't really carry over because like there's not going to be a game where Gunnar Olszewski's getting 100% of the targets on a drive. So that's where I'm looking at very much from a special team standpoint. So I think for Washington to make the roster, he probably needs to bump Smith Marset off the roster because I don't, you keep one guy who's exclusively a returner, another guy who's kind of a returner, kind of a backup slot. I think you only need one guy for that role. So I'm going to say I'll stick with Smith Marset at 5, despite Washington's hard charge he's made here. I think he's also a guy who can get to the practice squad. And then the 6th spot I thought was going to be Bryce Ford Wheaton. Obviously, unfortunately, he had the torn Achilles. And again, that's a spot where it's special teams is going to be the key.
Yeah.
I will go as of right now with Bo Collins, assuming his injury isn't significant. It doesn't seem to be. He's been on the side running and doing everything, so I don't even know what it could be because he looks like he's moving like 100%, but hasn't been participating the last handful of practices. But so who knows if he's ready for Saturday against Buffalo? But it doesn't look anything like they'll sideline him for an extended period. So he'll have his chance to join practice with the Jets, the last two preseason games to get a lot of run. I know he's the undrafted rookie. I think they're highest on internally. I think you look at just the pedigree, Clemson, Notre Dame, the physical pedigree where like he looks more like Bryce Ford Wheaton than like Dalen Cambray does. So in terms of just like filling that role as like a big, fast special teamer, I think he fits that mold too. So I would say as of today, I'll go Smith Marset and Collins with guys like Montreal Washington and Dalen Cambry probably on like that like competing with those guys for those spots. Even like Gunner, if like he can get into the preseason and break a long punt return, maybe he starts making them reevaluate things. But I think Smith Marset and Bo Collins have the inside track, and someone's gonna have to beat them out. And again, maybe Montreal Washington does, because I don't think Smith Marset is as much of a lock as I thought coming into camp. But I would say as of right now, I'll also give him the edge until kind of proven otherwise.
So there you go. Dan Duggan's feature before week 1 is going to be on the Giants wide receiver 5 and wide receiver 6.
Appreciate you teeing me up for that idea. All the numbers that story will do.
All the clicks. I found this is kind of dumb. Like, I found out recently. I've always wondered, like, do reporters, like, how do you see your numbers? Like, I'm sure there has to be like a database. And I listened to the. I met oh God, I'm forgetting his name. He does the teardown. It's Jordan Bianchi and who? NASCAR, Athletic.
Oh, I'm not a NASCAR guy.
The main guy. Oh no, this is so bad. I'm
like
gonna pull it up.
Slump or something like that, or Glug or something like that's like a short name, right?
Yes,
like
it's Jeff Gluck.
Gluck, yes.
Gluck.
Yes. I did know.
So
that,
I actually met him at Dover, and I was like, yeah, I know Dan Duggan. So I brought you up with him, and he knew you.
I feel even worse that I just butchered his name then, because I do know his name now that you mention it.
Yeah, they were mentioning like, oh yeah, we could see like how many people watch and how many people click. So I bet you it's going to be a 1 of 10. That's how we track things on YouTube, like 1 of 10, 2 of 10. Wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6. It's going to be a 1 of 10. Week 1 feature.
Well, I appreciate the assist on that.
Yeah, no problem. All right, thank you, Dan Duggan.
Thank you.
All right, thank you once again to Dan Duggan of The Athletic for coming on. Again, recapping the preseason game on Saturday, whether that's Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. I'll see you then. I'll see you in the chat. We're going to be watching and reacting to football once again. Congratulations. You made it. Preseason game 1 will feel like, oh, good and refreshing. And then by the time the Pats game rolls around, it'll be, damn, man, I need the real thing, and I'm itching for it, and then I'm getting tired of waiting. So that's the phases of the preseason. I'm excited to go through it all with all of you. Let me know what players you're watching out for in the comments. I'll rip a few off right now. Darnell Washington, let's see, Marcus Bowe. If he gets out there, I really hope that he gets extended playing time. Obviously, Evan Neal matters a ton. Is there going to be any interior defensive lineman that stands out or could stand out? Darius Alexander, are you getting off the ball a little bit faster? Nick Jones, Art Green, somebody at cornerback to stand out a little bit more. Raheem Lane at safety, is he the safety number 4 or is another safety going to come from another roster? Kayvon Wallace has had a quiet camp after being a vet that was signed. I don't expect Russell Wilson to play all that much. I expect Jameis to get a quarter, maybe Dart gets a quarter, and then Tommy DeVito we're seeing for the majority of the game and definitely the whole second half. That's what I expect quarterback rotation-wise. We'll see you on Saturday. I appreciate you listening. Let's go Giants. Take it away, Joey.
It starts today! Let's go Giants! We bleed blue!